Python lets you unpack sequences into variables easily. Let's say I have a variable here and let's call it point, and that is a tuple that has an x and a y coordinates. If I wanted to capture those into an x and y, all I need to do is basically something that looks like that. Let me make sure I switch this to a Python cell, and now if I execute the cell, but actually let me go ahead and print the values of x and y, it will unpack whatever was available in this sequence and it will put them into the respective variables in their respective orders. So if I go ahead and run that, we get x equals 10 and y equals 12. Also, if I wanted to capture the first, the middle, and the last items in a list that looks like that, if I try to execute that, actually, here's the first, here's the middle, and here's the last, we will get an error that basically says there are too many values to unpack. Over here you had 6 items, however you're trying to unpack them into 3, so there are too many. We're expecting only 3 items to be able to unpack that. But what we could do here is add the asterisk sign here, which basically says I want you to capture the first and everything that's in the middle, and then the last will be captured over here. So if I run that, here we get the first is just an item. The middle is a new list that was created based off of that list that captures everything that is not a first or a last item. And then obviously the last is the last item. There are so many use cases for what we would use packing and unpacking for. One of those is to swap values. So let's say I had a variable called A and another called B. And I wanted to swap the values so that A equals 2 and B equals 1. A very lengthy way to go about this is by creating an intermediary variable. I'll call this C, which will capture the value of A. I will update A so it captures the value of B, and I will assign B to whatever the value of C is. Now if I print out A and B, we see that they have been updated. Now A is 2 and B is 1. That is a very lengthy way to do something that can be so easily done with packing and unpacking. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to do A and B will now equal to B and A. So I'm unpacking the values of B and A into A and B. Now if I print them again, they should go back to the original order. Here we go.